Christian parenting.
Welcome to the Called to Love podcast, where we discuss all things adoption and foster care and dive into the practical, the clinical, and most importantly, the biblical perspectives to help you and your family thrive. I'm Summer Colbert, adopted mom, director of adoption and foster ministry, and champion for the Arkansas Baptist Children and Family Ministries. Adoption and foster care aren't just a process. They are both unique invitations to go on a journey with the Lord, where you will experience life-changing opportunities to grow in your faith and learn to love in an entirely new way. One thing is for sure, being called to love means you will never be the same. Welcome back, sweet families, to the Called to Love podcast. Hey, it is November, which means it is National Adoption Month, and that is what we are all about here at Called to Love. And today we're going to be discussing the need and several aspects related to older child adoption. We're going to dive into the fears and the concerns that you may be experiencing right now as you're wrestling with your own call to love. And we're just going to dive into the how, and we're going to hear from an expert in this area. And so joining me today for this conversation is Dr. Kimberly Offutt, and she is the Executive Branch Director at Bethany Christian Services. She's also a foster and adoptive parent herself. She's actually adopted 4 of her 7 children from foster care. And her heart and her belief is that every child and family deserves to be safe, loved, and connected. I love that. Kim, thank you so much for being here. It's my honor to have you as a guest today.
Thank you, Summer, for the invitation.
Absolutely. So I always love our listeners. You and I talked about this a little bit before we went live on this recording today. We're a family around here, and we are learning together as Christian foster and adoptive parents. I never boast that I have all the answers, and that is why I love to get to do what I do, to learn from my guests and people like yourself. But I love for our listeners to get to know our guests just on a personal level. So would you just begin by sharing with us a little bit about your family and then your work in adoption and foster care?
Oh, I'll be happy to. Now, Summer, I'm going to warn you, I tell stories. I love to tell stories. My life is full of stories.
Bring
So
it
if
on.
you need to interrupt me, please feel free to do so.
No, girl, you do it.
Thank you. But my journey with Bethany Christian Services started 21 years ago. So 21 years ago, I moved from Georgia to Michigan. This Georgia girl
Wow.
moved to Michigan on a faith walk, literally. Knew nothing about Bethany at that time, didn't have family at that time, and just literally took a leap of faith and moved from Georgia to Michigan. And that's where Bethany found me. I found Bethany, however you want to phrase that. And I started off as a recruiter. Really cool, Summer. I got paid to go to church. Literally, that's all that I did. I was building church partnerships based on James 1:27 and really focused on the youth most at risk of aging out of the foster care system.
Yeah.
So the program was called Partners in Prayer. You may recognize this name, but it was based on Bishop W.C. Martin and Lady Donna Martin's story.
Yes.
Yes, Sound of Hope.
Love
20
it.
years later for their story to actually become a movie. But it was so super cool to be a part of all of that too. But back then in 2002, I'm sharing about the mission. I'm sharing about the ministry. I'm sharing about the biblical mandate. And God is like, hey, before you tell other people what they should do, how about you do it?
Yep.
And that was the beginning of my journey. My husband and I actually knew that one day we would adopt. We expected to adopt a little person. You know, I'm a Georgia girl, so my mama used to say, if you feed a child long enough, they'll start looking like you. So in my mind, I imagined this itty bitty little person, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. And they were actually, have you ever seen those books? Back in the day, they used to print the books. In Michigan, we had the Michigan Adoption Resource Exchange. So the exchange that had the longest waiting children, they were actually printed in a book.
Wow.
And so back then, they still printed the books. They don't do that anymore because they're outdated as soon as they're printed. A child gets added or taken away. But back then, they were printed. And I would flip through the book. I was doing child-specific recruitment. And so I would flip through to specifically recruit for one of these young people that were photo listed in the book. And there were 2 1-year-olds. And because I didn't know about adoption in the state of Michigan, I went and asked a coworker, could I adopt two children who aren't siblings at the same time? But I was covering the face of this 8-year-old little boy. And as I was showing her the book, and she kept asking me, why are you covering this baby's face? And I told her, I don't know why. I can't look at him. Every time I look at him, I want to cry.
Oh,
And she
wow.
said, well, maybe he's the one you need to be calling about.
Yep.
He was the first child to call me mom. So
Okay.
many stories in there, but he was 8 at the time, 9 by the time he joined our family. My husband and I were 25 and 23. Babies. We were
Baby.
babies. But he was the first child to call me mom. Today
Mm.
I have 4 children. He's 29 now. He was 9 when we adopted, so he's 29 now. I have a 30-year-old, 29-year-old, 27-year-old, 20-year-old. Those are children of my heart. And then we have a 19-year-old, 13-year-old, and 7-year-old he's 8 now, that I actually gave birth to, and 6 grandbabies in there. So many more stories in there, Summer, but I'm a pause there.
I'm so curious. What a beautiful story. That is so incredible. And I mean, you're just obviously a wealth of experience and wisdom when it comes to this. And I can just feel your heart as you're sharing that story. And
Mhm,
I'm like, I want to know more. And I love that you talk about just that church-based recruitment. That's what I do too
mhm,
for my other big girl job. And so that is near and dear to my heart as well. And one of the hardest conversations that we do have with families is this idea of older waiting children who are ready for adoption. They are waiting for that forever family. And there's just a lot of fears and concerns that go into that. And so let's just talk about the reality of that need for a minute, Kim. I think it's really, really helpful for us to understand what is the need as far as older children waiting for a forever family right now.
In the US, there are over 400,000 children who are in foster care.
Right.
There's 125,000 of them that are actually available for adoption.
Yeah.
70% of those kids are between the ages of 11 and 14. Okay. 25,000 of those children age out of the foster care system every year.
Right.
I'm reminded of Carlos. When I first met him, he was a 15-year-old boy who had been in foster care since the age of 2.
Mm.
He had been in a residential facility since he was 10 years old. And he
Yeah.
was entering this poster contest where he was supposed to depict what it meant to him to find a forever family. And on that poster, you could see it was a picture of himself. You could see his mustache and his goatee. He had a T-shirt on, and it had an hourglass in it. So some of the hourglass, you could see the sand dropping at the bottom. And
Yeah.
across the top of his shirt said, "Time is running out for me."
Wow.
That's the reality of kids who are in foster care, who are available for adoption, and most at risk of aging out. Time is literally running out for them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's the domestic side of things. And it is a very real reality, one that not one of our listeners can escape in our own communities. It is literally
Mhm,
everywhere there is a child who is in need of that nurture, that guidance, and that parent role
mhm,
in their life. So let's talk about because we hear the need, we hear the numbers, they're staggering, they're heartbreaking. The image that you've just given us of this child who is literally the story of the shirt that you just described. Time is running out for me.
mhm,
For parents who are interested in adoption, there's so much fear and honestly a
mhm,
stigma around older
mhm,
child adoption, whether that's they're afraid of their trauma being too severe, they don't feel, equipped to address the type of trauma that these children have experienced, the possibly uncontrollable behaviors, unsafe habits, rejection of their adoptive family, running away, all these things. I know that this is obviously we're listing them because they have been realities and they are realities as a part of the adoptive parent experience. But Kim, how would you respond to these fears based on your experience?
So, Summer, again, doing this work for 21 years and being in the child welfare space for 26 years.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that if I had a regret, I would say that as a recruiter, as a trainer, I didn't prepare families well enough
Mm,
for the reality of adoption,
yeah.
not just adopting older kids. Because, okay, I hear, yes, children who are older, they may have experienced more trauma. Children who have older may have so many things. There's so many fears out there, and they're real. If I could say anything is, it's real. It's real, and you have to be equipped. You have to be ready, but not just for a teenager who has had multiple life experiences. My youngest adoption was 2.5, Summer. He was 2.5. He was my hardest adoption.
Wow.
And I'm sure your audience knows about the neuroscience of the brain and how trauma hardwires the brain. I pray they've read The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog by Dr. Bruce Perry. If you have not
Mm,
read that book, it's literally called The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog by Dr. Bruce Perry. He talks about how any trauma that you've experienced within the first 3 years of your life literally rehardwires your brain. So
yeah,
here's my baby at 2.5, and he's moved from home to home to home to home to home. Any child who has experienced a separation from their parents, any type of separation in those first 3 years of their life, you're going to be dealing with those behaviors. Not you may, you will
that's right.
deal with those behaviors as they grow up. My teens could tell me, this is what I saw. This is who did it. This is what I experienced. This is what I went through. My
Yeah,
2.5 year old, it was a guessing game.
right,
What did he see? What did he experience? What is this? Is this adoption? Is this quote unquote normal? I
right.
don't know. So when I tell families today, it again, today I prepare families that this is a battle, right? We're battling for families, we're battling for children. This is ministry.
Right.
It's hard. It will break you.
That's right.
You can't go and recruit a family to adopt when you say things like that, right?
That's
I didn't
true.
say that on those stages. I didn't go into churches saying, "Oh, this will break you.
Yeah.
This will be hard."
Yep.
But God,
That's right.
anything that he calls us to, he equips us for.
That's right.
Any fears that you may have, anything that you may feel inadequate for, we have training, we have support, we have ways that we can help equip you and equip you well, because it will be hard.
Yeah.
Your fears are real. You know, it's real for you to feel. Will they run away? Maybe. My adult children, have I experienced rejection? Absolutely.
Mm,
Have this caused me? I think about I think about the way I tell people as a married woman, right? How God utilizes marriage to teach me things about me that he wasn't able to teach me as a single person.
yeah.
In marriage, it's ministry. It's the same thing in adoption. He
Yeah.
does this thing in my heart. He showed me ways and has healed areas in my heart through adoption that he just would not have been able to do with children that I naturally gave birth to. So
Yeah.
dealing with the rejection, dealing with the pain, dealing with the trauma, leaning in that way taught me so much about me.
Yeah.
And it has healed areas in my life so I can bring healing to my children's lives as well.
Mm, that is so good, and I absolutely agree with everything you said. It's spot on. I feel like there were things that were unearthed and revealed in my heart and my brokenness that would not have come out had I not taken that journey of foster care and adoption for sure. And honestly, I feel like I'm a better mom even to my biological kids as a result of saying yes to adoption and unearthing those things that needed to be refined, that needed to be removed and that the Lord needed to deal with me on. And so that is so true. And, I think it probably is a fear response. And I don't throw people under the bus when I say this, but I hear a lot of this, and I know you do too when you're talking in this realm of churches and just talking to people in general about what you do. They're like, well, you just got to be a special person to do this. You've got to be just a really special person to adopt, especially an older kid. And there's this negative, mindset that comes with that. And like you're saying, I mean, the truth is you've got to be called to any kind of adoption. It is an absolute calling. It is a refining journey that will wreck you, that will break you, but will produce something so beautiful on the other side of it. And so I'm curious for you personally, maybe one of your biggest lessons that you feel like you've learned as a result of saying yes to this calling, Kim.
You know, I've learned because when I first stepped into this space, I hear you on the yes, you absolutely have to be called. But I actually stepped into this space feeling like I needed to save a child from something.
Right.
And I've learned that I'm nobody's savior, right?
Yeah.
We only have one savior. His name is
Right.
Jesus Christ.
Amen.
And in my quest to save a child, I found me. And I found my own healing and deliverance in so many ways. Yes,
Wow.
we absolutely need to be called. Yes, we absolutely need to be equipped. But
Yeah.
we are nobody's savior. This
That's
is
right.
not about me getting my own need feel or in some kind of way feeling like, no, that's already done. It was already done on the cross. So
Hey, sweet friend, do you have questions about adoption and foster care? This podcast is meant to be a resource for you to help you in this calling, which can be full of so many unknowns. We want to answer your questions, which is why in the show notes you'll find Summer's email, which is summercolbert@gmail.com, where you can submit your questions to Summer and let us know if we can share your questions or story here on the podcast, so other listeners can know that they aren't alone in their wondering and experiences. Again, that email is SOMERCOLBERT@gmail.com, or use the link below. You are not alone in this journey, sweet friend. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good word. I mean, it makes me tear up even hearing you say that, and just giving me chills, because it's such an important reminder that we are nobodies who have been so
mhm,
privileged to be called up and called out and saved by grace. And so
mhm,
just to be able to walk alongside another human, another image bearer of Christ, who
love
has
you.
experienced something different, who has experienced a brokenness that we can't fully comprehend, but we get the privilege, and I use this term a lot, of stewarding. We're not owners
Mhm,
of our kids. We're not, we are stewards and we are shepherds of the children that the Lord allows to be a part of our story. And that's such a healthy perspective as we go into the hard things, and as we need reminding on the hard days where we just feel like we can't put another foot in front of the other, and we're dealing with all of the difficult things, the big behaviors, the rejection, the trauma, all of that. When we are rooted in that understanding, everything that you just shared, it really does give us the strength to keep going. Now, you mentioned, and I think this really is important for us to talk about next, is this idea of preparing and educating. And you
mhm.
and I both can say this, a good number of years into this journey, that there's no amount of training or equipping on the front end of this journey that could ever prepare you enough. And so much of it
Mm-mm.
is learned along the way. But that being said, I would love to ask you, in your professional experience, what do adoptive parents need to do? What are some non-negotiables and ways and forms of just education and support that they need to prepare themselves if they are feeling this calling to step into this realm of older child adoption, or adoption just in general?
Just adoption, period.
Yeah,
Reading, studying trauma. Again, The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog, Dr.
yeah,
Bruce Perry. Anything by Dr. Bruce Perry is incredible.
yeah,
But understanding trauma, preparing your family. If you have biological children, include them in the journey. A
yes,
lot of the disruptions that I've seen in adoption has disruptions and even dissolving of adoptions have come because of the adjustment phase for biological kids who
yeah,
they just could not understand the trauma. They could not see their parents go through hard things, or maybe they were too they are now experiencing their own traumas and having a hard time. So include your biological kids. Everyone prepare and understand trauma. Research your schools, making sure that the school setting, you're having the right type of education for like emotional impairment or whatever that is.
yeah,
Identifying a trauma therapist. A trauma informed therapist is critical for your kids and for you.
right,
Getting counseling yourself, being able to have, especially, and I'm saying especially mainly because I'm married, but especially with your husband, ensuring that you both are in therapy, because this work can impact so much of your life. I'm
right,
not only an adoptive mom and I actually do this work. So many levels, I have so many hats on, and I
yeah,
wasn't prepared for the way that it could impact my marriage.
yeah,
No one talked about that in training,
right,
right? When you sign up to be a foster and adoptive parent, no one says this could cause you to really question life,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
So being sure that you and your spouse are in therapy, doing all the trauma informed stuff, your therapist, researching all the things, equipping your extended family, preparing
Yes.
them, talking to your church, getting your crew together now.
Hmm.
There's nothing that you can do pre-adoption that will, there's nothing. I'm trying to phrase this. Do everything now,
Yeah, that's good.
because it's a school of what not to do once the child comes. They're going to teach you a whole bunch of things once the child
So
is in the
true.
home. I've learned so much from the very first child that called me mom. So
Yeah. Oh, that's so, so good. Yeah, and support is everything. Let's lean into that a little bit because I do similar work that you do,
mhm,
and I work with a lot of families who have said yes to this calling and they've stepped into some of these things that maybe were unexpected. And one of those things was a lack of support or understanding from extended family. And
mhm,
so there's this fine balance between the biblical mandate to honor your mother and father, right? And something that we want to do, or extended family, whatever that looks like. We want to honor everyone that's involved in our lives as family, but also be obedient to the individual calling that we have in our
mhm.
own immediate families. And so, what does that balance look like for you? Or what word of encouragement would you offer, Kim, when it comes to family who's not fully on board, who doesn't fully support or understand? They just want to see, their grandkids parented the old fashioned way without understanding fully of trauma, all the things. How would you speak into that for us?
I'm trying to pull a story. My mother, they did not understand
Mm,
why I chose to adopt first,
right.
right? They questioned, well, can't you have your own
Yeah.
kids? And I'm doing the your
Yeah.
own kids.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I had to explain to them that this was a calling. This is I know that I know that I know, just like I know that I'm a Black woman.
Yeah.
This is what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
And how they can support me is by praying for me, number one,
Yeah.
helping me by walking alongside me and my children, loving my kids, the ones that I gave birth to and the ones that are children of my heart,
Yeah.
the same. I know that is a challenge for families as well. That's my grandchild. And well, that's my grandchild too, kind
Yeah.
of a thing. Um, and just really helping my family understand, because again, I'm a good old Georgia girl who was raised with corporal punishment.
Yeah.
Spare the rod, spoil the child.
Right.
Mom, no. Our children have experienced enough trauma to add, physical punishment on top of that. So just educating them and
Right.
helping them understand how we could parent differently. And yes, I may have quote unquote turned out all right, but I had my own things that I needed to work through because I was corporally punished and I didn't need to be,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it has been a journey of educating my family. It has been a journey of finding my tribe, because some of the language that I use, my family just doesn't understand.
It's a
And
great way.
so it is my family that I have built around me has been other foster and adoptive parents as well. It has
Yeah.
been, youth who aged out of the foster care system, like the one I have. You can't see the picture in this screen right now. But Brittany, she calls me Dr. Mom, Dr. Mama Mentor, Miss Kim. Um, and yes, I play so many different roles in her life, but yes, I'm Dr. Mama Mentor, Miss Kim.
Mhm.
So she's a part of my family too, because she too has been in the foster care system. She aged out of the foster care system. She gets my kids in a way that
Yeah.
even I don't get them, right?
Right.
So to be able to just educate your community, and it's
Mm.
a constant journey of education. So,
It is. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm hearing you say that, and I absolutely agree with that. And the word that comes to mind is margin. Because here we are, we're doing the wife thing, we're doing the mom thing, we're doing the ongoing education thing. Then we're trying to minister with grace to those in our
mhm,
lives who don't understand. We're trying to build a community around us, the tribe, as you mentioned. I love the way you word
mhm,
that because it is so amazing and beautiful how the Lord provides where we see a lack, right? If we don't have that supportive immediate family, He provides family to come along the way and speak that common language and lift you up and all of that. But man, that right there, just sharing all of that, and that goes on every day, all day,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes into the night when you have trauma kids who don't sleep. So margin, my friend, where do we find it when we are doing the things, when we're living out the calling, and it's just exhausting?
It is absolutely exhausting. And I've told so many families, whether you're a foster parent or an adoptive parent, just a biological mom, you're a mom, right?
Yeah.
To be able, there's so many things that I feel like I've learned over these years in self-care and taking care of me
Yeah.
mentally, emotionally, spiritually, socially. I have to drink my water. I have to take my vitamins. I need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I can't sacrifice that. I need to be in prayer. I need to be spend time in worship. I need to spend time with him because he strengthens me through all of this, right? I
Right.
can't do any of this without him. And if
Yeah.
I'm not taking care of myself well, then I can't show up well as a mama. I can't show up well as a wife. I can't show up well as a friend. I can't show up well in these spaces, even at Bethany, where I'm responsible for all kinds of programs and staff and everything else. Um, but not sacrificing those things, not sacrificing your mental health and your physical health and your emotional health and your spiritual health to do this.
Yeah.
So it's critical that we take care of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And that's hard to do because we as moms, we just tend to sacrifice ourselves for the sake of all of those that we're caring for. But we absolutely have to prioritize that so that we can effectively serve and help
Hmm.
our kids and to thrive and do all the things that we've been called to do. I love that. I think that's so important. You mentioned Bishop Martin and First Lady just a few minutes ago.
Yes.
They are some of my favorite. I've had the pleasure of meeting them a couple of times and got to spend quite a bit of time with Bishop Martin about a month and a half ago. He came for a conference that my agency was hosting. And I mean, I just love his heart and the inspiration behind
Hmm.
his story. Sound of Hope, guys, if you haven't seen it, please go and make sure that you watch that movie. It's absolutely incredible. And it is so telling and such a real depiction of
Hmm.
what it is to experience adoption in every age range and all of that. And
Hmm.
I know it's your heart and it's my heart for us to see that type of story pop up everywhere in our communities, in our churches. And I think what's heartbreaking to me is those that are still looking away, and because they're allowing that's someone else's calling, that's someone else's deal, it takes a special person. Well, so the government will handle that. Bishop Martin gets on that one big time on all of that, and he's like, no, it is God's people who are responsible for responding to this. And so I know this is an uncomfortable challenge that I'm about to have you speak to, but when it comes to that James 1:27 mandate, when it comes to this idea and the reality of so many children right in our own communities, regardless of where you live, there is a child that you can serve. Kim, how would you speak to that mandate and encourage those who maybe someone's listening today and they're really wrestling with taking that first step, but they're hearing everything that you've shared and they're like,
Hmm.
okay, I'm really feeling compelled. What advice do you have so that we can see the reality maybe behind this dream that we have of more stories like the Martin family?
It's really interesting. I'm smiling at you because I've told people to stop praying in that situation. I know it sounds weird for me to say that,
Yeah, yeah.
but the devil won't make you do it,
Right.
right? Sometimes we sit back and we're like, Lord, is this you? Is this you? Should I? Should I? Yes. Get off the fence,
Right.
make the call, take the next step.
Right.
God's got you. This is totally not the devil telling you to do this.
Yeah.
You've prayed about it, you've sought him, you're still wrestling. Just the simple fact that you're wrestling with it, it's time for you to just lay that at his feet. And
Yeah.
whatever it is he's called you to, he will equip you for. And I
That's right.
say it that way because everyone is not called to be a foster parent or to adopt,
Right.
but he may simply be calling you to say yes to walking alongside foster and adoptive parents.
That's
He may
right.
be calling you to use your time, your resources, your talent to support organizations who have foster care and have adoption programs. We need resources to do this work and do this work well.
That's
You
right.
may have those resources. You may be that family who has been called to walk alongside the Britneys of the world. Brittany is the young woman who calls me Dr. Mama Mentor, Miss Kim, who,
Yeah.
when I met her at the age of 27, said, "Will you take me?" because she had aged out of the foster care system.
Wow.
There are young people, 25,000 who age out. Literally, when you age out, that means the doors to the foster care system is closed. And these children, these young adults, are now trying to figure out life on
Yeah.
their own without the stability and the support of a family. You
Right.
may be their network. You may be their community. You may be the person that they can put on the application that it call in case of an emergency.
Yeah.
You know, young people who age out of the foster care system don't know who to put in those spots.
Right.
They need help in navigating, going to college or getting my own apartment or buying a car or bank accounts and going to school. What's going to happen when the dorms close? I mean, you could easily be that family that walks alongside them and just be a support.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are you saying yes to? Just say yes and let's figure it out, right? God's got you in all of this.
Yes. Amen. Absolutely. And you're right. It's not a one answer for everybody type of
Mm-mm.
calling. It really is so multifaceted, and the need is so tremendous that to see the body of Christ step up and step into some area of this ministry will be just an incredible blessing to so many children, ultimately with the goal of pointing them to Christ, right? And his
Absolutely.
the fact that he is the answer to their brokenness and the path toward healing. And so I love that you share that. And I want to see churches call up people who will come and walk alongside kids who have aged out, to be that safe place they can go for the holidays, to be that mentor type relationship, to see
Mm-hmm.
foster and adoptive families supported in the churches so that they know that they are not navigating this alone. And I mean, there's just so many other things. And we've talked about it from time to time on the show as well. But I just love hearing you from your experience and the work that you do, just reiterate all of that. And so, guys, I know you love her, Dr. Kimberly Offutt. I am so grateful for the work that you're doing, my friend. I want to make sure that our listeners can connect with you further and learn from you more. How can they do that?
Absolutely. To reach us, 1-800-BETHANY or bethany.org.
Fantastic. Okay. I'm going to make sure and have that information as well as the book that you've referenced a couple of times in today's conversation. And we did an episode several months back where it was called Safeguarding What is Sacred. And that is speaking specifically to what you were talking about, Kim, related to marriage and protecting that
Mm.
marriage relationship. And so I'm going to have that link in today's show notes as well if you want to refer back to that and just kind of add to your arsenal of things and knowledge as you educate yourself along the way and as you prepare. I love what you shared today, Kim, about preparing as much as you can right now before that child enters your home, because it is quite the ride once that happens, and it's
Oh, yeah.
beautiful. And we want to see more and more families step up and say yes to that. So here, as we focus on adoption here in November, I am so grateful to have had this conversation with you, Kim. It has been such a pleasure. Thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you so much. This has been a joy.
Thank you so much for listening to Called to Love today. I love to hear from listeners, and so I would love to connect with you to hear your stories and answer your questions right here on the show. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram, send me a direct message, or send me an email at the link in today's show notes. I pray you have been encouraged by today's episode to walk in faith and continue to embrace your own call to love. Until next time, blessings, sweet friends.